Hey good people. By now, some of you who've been watching my reviews for this season of Ready to Love are probably wondering why I haven't been posting episode reviews for the past several weeks. Well, it pains me to say that I've officially tapped out of reviewing the show, and if you lend me a few minutes of your time, I'll gladly explain why. You see, good people, I knew that coming into this season of Ready to Love, the only way that I can make it through an entire season was if I kept my expectations as low as possible. However, Ready to Love Fort Worth has got to be the absolute worst season of Ready to Love that I've ever seen, and it feels like the showrunners aren't even trying to pass the show off as a dating show. Ready to Love has officially turned into Lord of the Flies. Now, in my opinion, the most significant event that happened on this season of Ready to Love was the self-elimination of Leilene. And I say that this is the most significant event because I initially predicted that Leilene would make it to the end of the season based on her looks alone. And when you couple that with the fact that most of the guys this season had her in their top connections prior to her self-elimination, one could argue that Leilene's position in the finale was all but solidified. I also think it's worth mentioning that Leilene was one of the few women this season that was open to having children, which was great because most of the guys this season also wanted to have children. But with her departure, we're stuck with a bunch of fake connections between cast members that likely won't go anywhere after filming of the season ends. Now for me, what truly killed this season of Ready to Love was the terrible trio of Koshia, Luron, and Mika. Koshia was a woman that was very pleasant to look at, but once somebody rubbed her the wrong way, she would fly off the handles by going from 0 to 60 instantaneously, or by shutting down completely before going back on attack mode, and behavior like this tells me a few things. For one, it seemed like Koshia was all over the place and her inability to handle her emotions would eventually make it impossible for her to find a solid connection on the show. 2, Koshia's decision to come on TV to find love was definitely a mistake because, in my opinion, the presence of the cameras definitely puts more pressure on her to adhere to the show's process, and such pressure caused Koshia to portray many negative stereotypes that are associated with black women. And 3, Koshia's decision to fight or flight in nearly every episode of the season slowly turned the season of the show into a spoof of Love and Hip Hop or Flavor of Love. But we can't talk about Koshia without talking about her one and only person that she connected with, Luron. Now I said it very early on that Luron had no business being on Ready to Love because it's clear that he is really not looking for love. But if there's one thing that Luron knows how to do, it's keeping the drama going. Shortly after Koshia was eliminated, we learned that Luron had his target set on getting rid of Alexis because there was apparently some sort of pact between Alexis, Will, and others to get Koshia voted off. And because Alexis had been relaying some misinformation that the female cast members were saying in the ladies' lounge about their weakest connections. Now here's my take on Luron's issues with Alexis. It was pretty clear that Koshia was working on borrowed time because she essentially alienated most of the men with her attitude and antics. So it really doesn't matter who may have plotted to get rid of her, because there's no way she was going to make it to the finale. But I also didn't have any issue with Alexis relaying information about the lies and misinformation that was being told about the guys in the women's lounge. To me, it's pretty childish for grown-ups on a reality TV dating show to feel the need to lie about people they're not interested in. But I find it ironic that Luron hated the plot to get rid of Koshia, yet he uses underhanded tactics to get rid of Alexis and attempt to throw William under the bus so that he can stay on the show. Now I understand that fans of the show are divided on Alexis, but Alexis, just like Leilene, was one of the few women on the show that actually wanted to have kids. And she also had several solid connections with guys that also wanted to have kids. But her elimination also undercutted Dominique, who had the strongest connection with her and was one of the most solid dudes of this season. But I also find it ironic that the women voted off all of Alexis's connections, one by one, until she didn't have any guys that would save her from elimination. So it's pretty clear that Luron had been working with some of these women behind the scenes to get rid of the men while maintaining his place on the show. And to that, I have to wonder, what do these cast members really get out of screwing each other over? Is there some sort of financial incentive if they make it to the finale? Do they receive royalties based on how many episodes they appear in per season? Is there a bonus for which cast members can stir up the most drama? I ask these questions because it's clear that finding love is not on the top of anybody's agenda, so it's gotta be money. And if that's the case, then I might as well watch Survivor. But lastly, I want to talk about Mika. Now Mika is like Koshia in the sense that she's amazing to look at, However, with her attitude, as well as her decision to give most of the guys the cold shoulder, and her not wanting to have any more kids, should have gotten her voted off of the show a long time ago. However, I have to ask, why is she still on the show? For the past several weeks, her only solid connection was with Justin, which isn't really a solid connection in my opinion, because Justin wants to have kids, regardless of how much he tries to downplay it. And none of the guys have a solid connection with Mika. So again, why is she still on the show? Now, in addition to all that I just mentioned, I think it's important to point out that the silliness that happened in this past episode. There are 5 women who remain on the show, and 4 of them are going after Chaz, while 1 is going after Luron, and this makes me feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. I'll admit that I had Chaz as getting eliminated from the show early on, but he has exceeded my expectations. Nevertheless, I don't understand why Vanessa, Mika, Patrice, and Rashina are all going after him. I can understand Vanessa, and to a lesser extent Rashina, showing interest in Chaz, but Patrice had connections with William and Alonzo, and Mika had her connection with Justin. But out of nowhere, it seems like Patrice and Mika aren't sold on their connections with Alonzo and Justin. But they all must know that Chaz can't choose all of them, and somebody's going to have to get in where they fit in. Nevertheless, situations like this expose the flawed elimination system that the show has. And I had hoped that Maya was one of the few decent cast members on this season of the show, but seeing how she turned her back on William for Luron was extremely disappointing. But with all that said, I just want to let you all know that I'm done reviewing Ready to Love for the season, and I try to stick with it, but at this point it's just a waste of my time. And this marks the end of the video. Please leave all comments below in the comment section, and I'll be sure to reply to everybody. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.